content information and a link to the written version of this short story, please check the description below. This week's short story is based on The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, 1831. Remember that you can donate to my Cash App, you can donate to my GoFundMe to help with my transition, and I also have commissions open. For more information, please check the description below, where you will find my email. Now, let's get on to the story. Esmeralda collapsed to the ground, tired from dancing in front of the entire village. All she longed to do was cry. Her body ached from her neck to her toes, but to her it was worth it. The pain was worth it so long as she could bring back gold for her community. Still, pain was pain, and she needed to rest. Esmeralda crawled over to a pile of hay, and so overcome with fatigue, she took a nap. Sleep won over for a few hours, and when she at last stirred awake, it was nightfall. It took the woman a further 20 minutes to build the strength to lift herself up from her makeshift bed. "Who goes there?" a man yelled out, throwing torchlight in her face. Esmeralda shielded her eyes with the back of her hand until the light eased. "You're a woman." The man offered his hand. The woman ignored it. She wasn't about to accept the help of someone she didn't know, especially not a man. The man was taken aback by what he saw as a rude gesture. "What's your name, woman?" Esmeralda held her tongue, understanding now that she was nervous. The man approached the situation differently. "My name is Captain Phoebus," Esmeralda gasped. "An officer!" She pushed herself to her feet, wincing from the sudden shot of pain. "Are you okay?" Phoebus questioned, regarding the discomfort on Esmeralda's face. "Leave me alone. I don't fraternize with your kind." Phoebus furrowed his brow. "My kind? Good lady, I only want to protect the people of this kingdom." "Protection?" Esmeralda spat. "Where was your protection when my people were driven out of their homes for refusing to worship your god?" Phoebus didn't know what to say. "You don't care about protecting us." Esmeralda turned, placing her fingers to her forehead. "Are you sure you're okay? You look like you're in pain." The woman spun around and smacked the captain around the face. Phoebus placed a hand to his cheek in shock, which was quick to turn to anger. "You dare lay a hand on one of the king's men?" Esmeralda stepped back. No, I didn't mean it." She stuck her hands out to defend herself as Phoebus lifted his blade. The woman ducked as it swiped down on her. In a moment of confusion from Phoebus, she swung her leg out under him, tripping him backwards. The captain fell to the ground with such a force that his helmet cracked on the cobbled street. Disorientated, he refocused his eyes only to see Esmeralda lifting his sword above her head and bringing it down on him. Esmeralda dropped the sword to the ground with a crash, but she had no time to relieve the searing pain that shot through her arms, as one of Phoebus's men had witnessed the entire ordeal. "Get her!" he yelled to his fellow guards as he pointed a finger towards the woman, who was shaking from shock. The clunking of the guards' feet against the stone street brought Esmeralda to her senses, and it wasn't long before she too was running. The cold, hard ground attacked her bare feet as they guided her towards sanctuary. She backed herself into an alley, shrouded in darkness, and hid herself in its embrace until she was certain the guards had passed. She caught her breath and placed her palm against the closest wall, only to feel the rough touch of wood brush itself against it. "A door?" she asked herself as she pushed it open and took a nervous step inside. "Who goes there?" a voice called from the shadows, causing a lump to go in Esmeralda's throat. A figure approached into the light, and relief took over. "Quasimodo!" Esmeralda laughed, rushing in to hug her old friend. "What are you doing here?" The man stepped back concerned. "I was escaping the guards." She looked at her friend, whose eyes carried an ounce of disappointment. "Do you remember why?" Esmeralda prepared to speak, but nothing came out. So instead, she stood in silence for a moment. Quasimodo nodded and motioned for his friend to follow him. It was a long way up the winding staircase, and Esmeralda feared she wouldn't be able to reach the top. "I can't go on, Quasi. There are too many steps. Quasimodo turned and lifted the woman into his arms, carrying her the rest of the way. "Do you need water?" Esmeralda shook her head. I'm tired. Her friend smiled and guided her to a makeshift bed. Thank you. Esmeralda gave a tired smile before again succumbing to sleep. What do you mean she got away? Frollo slammed his fist into the table. That witch kills one of my men, and you let her escape justice? I want her burned at the stake. Do you hear me? The man screamed. He stormed away from the messenger and headed to his study. With force, he pulled his chair out from under his desk and placed his head in his hands. I tried, Agnes. I tried, but the girl is beyond help now. He looked up to a portrait of his late wife. Don't look at me like that. She ran away to be with your family. She had every chance to make the right decision and bend like you did, but she wanted a life of sin. So, she shall die as a sinner. Sunlight bounced off the church bell and into the woman's sleeping eyes, twitching them open. Where am I? She yawned, opening her eyes to see Quasimodo sitting a few feet away, looking out the village below. Why, Esmeralda? Esmeralda sat up confused. Why did you give up the church? The woman frowned. I find it hard to believe that there is just one God, and if there was, why would they do this to me? She got to her feet and motioned to her body. I believe God gave us these challenges for a reason. He made me ugly as punishment for the sins of man. Esmeralda shot a look at her friend. Who says you're ugly? Quasimodo closed his eyes in sadness. Frollo does. He comes up here and says not a doctor in the world would want to look at me long enough to want to cure me. Esmeralda felt a sharp pang in her chest. You don't need to be cured, Quasi. This is just who you are. That man has no right to treat you like this. The woman thought for a moment. Why don't you come with me? Quasimodo shook his head. And leave the church? This is my home. You know that. I can't leave. Why did you come here? Esmeralda sighed. I didn't recognize it in the dark. If I'd have known, I never would have come. You were the only reason I stayed as long as I did. Please, Quasimodo. It's not safe for you here. The door to the bell tower swung open and in stepped Frollo. I thought I heard a buzzing coming from up here. Esmeralda. The man nodded to his daughter. Leave us alone. I want nothing to do with you. The woman snapped back. The man smirked in return. Esmeralda, you know full well I cannot let criminals run rampant around the village. You are to face a trial where you will be found guilty of murdering Captain Phoebus and sentenced to death by burning at the stake. Come along now and leave the poor beast boy alone. Frollo stared at his daughter, who stood there in shock. You can't arrest me in a church. Quasimodo nodded in agreement, and Frollo responded with a laugh. My dear, you don't follow our religion. Remember that story about the blind mice wandering into a barn and getting their tails chopped off? You're the mice. Esmeralda looked to Quasimodo for help, but the man bowed his head in defeat. The woman's heart pumped faster as she tried thinking of a way out, but the more she tried, the fewer thoughts came to mind. She was trapped, and so gave herself willingly to her father. The ropes burned Esmeralda's wrists before they'd even lit the fire. It was the thought of her pain disappearing that made the situation almost worth it. A lifetime of pain she couldn't see the source of gone in a blaze of smoke, but she also knew that her death would not help her people. It wouldn't help the community her mother left behind, out of fear of suffering the fate of her daughter was about to. A last prayer? Frollo jeered, relishing in every moment. Esmeralda spat at his feet and looked over to the church, where she could only just make out the silhouette of Quasimodo looking down at her. He would be no help. This is it, she whispered to herself as she looked down to meet the eyes of a little girl looking up to her teary eyes. Mother, why does that beautiful woman have to die? Her mother knelt down to meet her level. She's a sinner, my darling, and as her daughter questioned her what sin had been committed, the bells began ringing. The ringing rang through the crowd, making some beam of pride and others to look down in despair. A hooded figure made its way through the crowd before stopping beside the little girl. Esmeralda looked at it with hope in her eyes, but when the hood was removed, It was just another unknown face in the crowd. "Wait," she cried as the execution was about to begin. "I'd like to pray." Whispers began spreading around the crowd. "She's repented her sins. She's seen the light. You can't burn her now." Frollo listened to every word and looked at his daughter with a proud smile. It was the first time he'd smiled at her in years. "Do you mean it? Will you pray?" Esmeralda nodded at her father and looked at the crowd. "I pray you stop burning those who don't believe in the same things as you at the stake. I pray that someday you'll stop living your lives by some force you cannot see and start focusing your attention on the world you can. And to those who relish in my death, today I pray that you join me in hell you invented." The crowd gasped and Frollo turned away in disgust. "Do it," he ordered before walking away as his daughter was preparing to meet the flames. She had found her peace, her eyes closed as she waited for her pain to go away. "Halt!" Frollo yelled. "Let her go." The executioners looked on confused. "I said let her go." They did as they were told, and they untied Esmeralda. She winced as she rubbed her wrist. "My daughter is right. We need to stop burning everyone who doesn't believe in what we do. God gave us free will, and by killing these people we state that we don't agree with the gift he has given us." The crowd still looked on confused. "She murdered someone," someone pointed out. Frollo looked to the sky. "Oh, right. Never mind, burn her." He prepared to walk away, but was punched square in the face by Quasimodo. "Esmeralda, come quick." The woman wasted no time and ran to her friend. "You changed your mind?" she asked, running alongside him. "You were right. God didn't give us these disabilities as punishment. I don't know why he would give us them at all, but he did, and if God creates us all in his image, then who are we to call his image ugly?" Esmeralda smiled at her friend. She knew in reality there was a long history of trauma they needed to work through, but right now, she was happy knowing that when her friend looked in the mirror, he saw himself for the beautiful person he was, both inside and out, and not the monster her father had tricked him into believing he was. Even though every step they ran caused immense pain to rush through her body, Esmeralda had never felt better. There had been no more talk of death. They were going to live, and now they knew how to live. Esmeralda vowed to herself that she would help as many people live as she could. She would endure all the pain that came with running if it meant creating a world where no one needed to run. That was this week's story. I hope you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing to see more videos like this. And yeah, remember to like this video as well and hit the bell button to be notified of more videos on my channel. Next month is Pride Month, so I will be focusing on a lot more Pride things. So on Tuesday, I'll be releasing chapter 7 of I Don't Know from Copia. On Thursday, finally, I will be releasing the Under the Queer Umbrella A-Spec video. That was supposed to be out last week, but this week, but wasn't because it took a long time to write. And on next Saturday, I will actually be taking a break from writing short stories because it is really difficult to write short stories every single week, and instead going to do a ranking of my 10 classic retellings that I've released so far. So that's going to be quite fun, quite interesting. Until then, I will say goodbye. I hope you have a good weekend. I'll see you soon, and thank you for supporting my channel. Bye.